Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. I hope all of you are having a great day, and welcome into the program as we get started with the nation's longest running talk show on computers and technology. So I think a good place to start includes, for anyone out there who has not checked out the website yet, today on the show, you know him, you love him, Gary Kaye himself, Tech50Plus, and Chief Content Officer, founder, and all that good stuff. We're going to be talking about a number of things today, and you know, it's always a good conversation. These are the kinds of shows. Admittedly, it would be incredibly vain if I said that I listen to my own shows, while I was driving. But for long car rides, just a nice conversation that flows. Gary Kaye is some of the best content we have out here. That's our guest for today for the entire hour. And, of course, I need to mention, computeramerica.com, where you will find things such as the show notes. So anything we talk about here today, including any articles, including any websites, of course, a link to Tech50Plus, and more can be found in the show notes at computeramerica.com. While you're there, check out the live video stream because you can watch Computer America, not just listen to the show. Another way to enjoy us. And the last thing is our social media contest, which we will have a winner tomorrow from our friends over at Logitech, giving away the M720 mouse. Yeah, great. And yeah, we will be announcing a winner live on the air here tomorrow. So check that out. You won't be disappointed. And yeah. Oh, and one last thing. One of our sponsors, Fire Dragon Security, we recently published an article about Fire Dragon Security. And it's a little heady, but for security professionals or security-minded individuals, when it comes to cybersecurity, well, you're definitely going to want to check that out. And it was just published over on our website, I believe Tuesday. So go check that out. And again, from Fire Dragon Security. Okay, now, all of that said, why don't we just jump into today's topic? So, help me welcome onto the show, once again, Chief Content Officer, founder, Gary Kaye of Tech50Plus. Gary, thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure to be with you, Ben. How are you?
Doing well. Glad that you could join us once again. And before we get started, I, of course, have to mention that just yesterday, we had Dickie D himself, Mr. Dick DiBartolo, and he told me to tell you, how you doing? And he told me to say hello for him, and he knows you, of course, from conventions and things like that, and he wanted me to reach out and say hello to you. So there you go.
Love Dickie D. He has a lot of fun. He knows his stuff.
Absolutely.
2 weeks ago,
Sure.
I was down at the M Enabling Summit in just outside of Washington. Sort of a funny name for a conference.
Yeah, I never heard of that one.
And this is the 7th year that it's been going on. I guess it's about the 4th year in a row that I've gone there. And it's all about new mobile technologies to help the impaired, whether it's age impaired or hearing impaired or dexterity impaired or learning impaired or vision impaired. It's been getting more and more interesting each year. This year, one of the big focuses at the summit was on making the internet accessible. And, we start off with the premise that right now, whether you're disabled today, there's a fighting chance that eventually you'll be disabled in some way, form, or shape, and will probably need some help. And when you think about the internet and making it accessible, and you should take a step back. It's an interesting problem because here you've got the internet made for a screen, right? Let's face it, it was designed for a computer screen. What do you need in order to operate a computer screen? You need to be able to see it. You need to be able to use your hands to manipulate a keyboard, and you need to be able to use your ears to hear the audio you're hearing.
Yeah.
So if you are lacking any one, two, or all of those, or have other problems such as cognitive disabilities, um, the internet becomes a really daunting place. You can't easily get from here to there. You can't make use of that incredible resource without some intermediary help.
But that was that's kind of what I was thinking, because on the program we actually have some very close listeners that are vision impaired and hearing impaired and things like that, and we've had companies on the show such as Jaws and other programs that kind of they're screen readers and they have tools, and actually when we redesigned the website, we actually work closely with a couple of our listeners because we weren't properly kind of like tagging the content. We weren't properly kind of using the tools available, because it's a very easy thing to look over that these accessibility tools that you mentioned, they use some behind the scenes kind of coding to really get the proper information, like picture tags and things like that. The description of the picture is read aloud when they hover over it. I mean, like, it's a thing that you really don't think about, but there are intermediaries. There are ways around it. So kind of, why was the M-Enabling Summit kind of founded as, bringing the internet to them instead of focusing on, these third-party programs? Do you think it's just that big of an issue that everyone should think about it at this point?
Well, when you look at it, it's really, disability as sort of a category is really broad-based. I mean, one of the things about the summit is as you wander through it, you see people there with service dogs, you see people in wheelchairs, some of them motorized, you see all of the sessions are done with sign language, simultaneous. There's closed captioning because there are a lot of people out there with an assortment of disabilities. So yeah, it is an issue. And one of the problems, Ben, is that a lot of these companies have not done a great job in communicating the accessibility features that they have out there.
Okay.
And I think that's almost as much of a challenge as creating these features from the outset. So Apple is a terrific example, because if you go into the accessibility features in your iPhone or iPad, there's a ton of stuff in there.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff for vision, especially.
Right. So triple tap to blow stuff up. And yet time and again, I'm on the train, especially when I take Amtrak from New York down to DC. I'm on the train and there's always somebody, within my field of vision who's looking at an iPhone with a magnifying glass.
Oh.
And I go, why are you doing that?
Right. I mean to yourself and myself that we know the shortcuts. You say, why would you ever do that? I mean, it's so easy, but at the same time, it makes all the sense in the world, because I guess you're right that they don't communicate it properly. They don't say, hey, we have a solution for X problem. They just kind of throw it in there and hope that you find it.
Right. And so within recent months, Apple has actually started television ads pointing at some of their accessibility features, which is, when you think about Apple's overall marketing position about going after sort of young and hip, for them to acknowledge that they are out there making accessibility functionality is pretty remarkable. It's a big change in their attitude. And I think Tim Cook has had something to do with that. But one of the things that happened at M-Enabling was, as you know, Apple is now getting ready to launch iOS 11 in the fall, we think, and it's now in public beta. And there are a host of new accessibility functions in there. If you look at the article that we have running on the website right now on the M-Enabling conference, you'll see what some of those are. But the biggest one to me is the dynamic type capability. So right now, when you are on your iPhone and you go to a website via the web, that does not necessarily have pinch and zoom capability. Getting that to fit in your screen is really challenging. And now with this new dynamic capability, the text will sort of automatically grow when you get to these sites to make it really easily readable without the letters and the lines overlapping the way they can now. But there are a host of new functions coming for iOS 11.
Yeah, and you know, of course, just real quick, if you're watching the video portion, we kind of have you know, your website up and showing everyone, and wow, there's, you know, a dozen or more features that you kind of have here, and then of course, it looks like you have a number of different, well, you know, like I kind of mentioned, third-party applications that kind of bridge the gap when companies don't do it themselves.
Right. So, you know, the woman who runs the accessibility programs at Apple was on hand to talk about this, and it's interesting that a lot of these sessions, you know, the sort of the small panels, were only sparsely attended. Her panel was standing room only. Standing room only to look at, because so many people are now in the Apple ecosystem, that this is a major point for millions, you know, literally millions of people out there, because seniors, let's face it, the vast majority of people who are over age 50 have at least some vision difficulties. They're wearing reading glasses, whatnot, even if they don't necessarily have hearing impairment or manual dexterity issues. But, you know, most of them are you know, visually impaired in one way or another. And so this is a big deal for us.
Yeah.
You know, and it's interesting when you see the kind of turnout to realize how much of an essential tool the Apple device has become for so many people.
Right. Yeah. And I really do believe that part of that has to do with the fact that, you know, if you ask your, you know, if you ask your kids, or, you know, you ask you know, your grandkids or someone around you, what's an easy phone for me to use? I really feel like Apple has a really good reputation of it just works out of the box. It's very intuitive. It just works. But and just real quick, the thing I wanted to mention was I was looking through, you know, enhanced dynamic type that you just mentioned, and, you know, other features, but we have had ad nauseum talks about self-driving cars. It's you know, it's going to be great for, you know, a 50 and older audience, or people with physical impairments or vision impairments. Driving is going to give people a lot of freedom back. So, I mean, I'm seeing, like, you know, the enhanced dynamic type, like you mentioned, it kind of makes text bigger as you type it and things like that. That's all well and good, but do you think that Apple or even the audience in general should maybe put more attention to, you know, having Siri type for you rather than that? Or, you know, because, you know, being able to type yourself, and, you know, of course,
well, you can do that, and you know.
But should they develop that kind of technology in that way, or should they focus on an all-encompassing approach?
Well, I think you know, it all sort of ties together. I mean, we're seeing more and more voice capability being added to all of these devices, and in fact, I was at a demonstration of Google Assistant the other day, and the Google Home, where they took an entire townhouse in New York, and nice place to live, incidentally. Nobody I know could afford that rent. But anyway, They took this beautiful townhouse and put all of these devices in and showed them how they could all be activated with the sound of your voice through Google Assistant. And Apple's doing much the same with HomeKit, and of course we already have Amazon's ecosystem with Alexa. And part of what they're doing in there is allowing you to have stuff typed by dictation. And again, there's a learning curve involved and so on. So I think we're seeing some of that. Interestingly enough, because you mentioned self-driving cars, so you opened that door. I'm going to walk through it.
All right.
One of the folks who was at M-Enabling was from Uber.
Oh, yeah?
Actually, he was there the very day that their CEO was unceremoniously given the boot.
Yep.
And he was talking about, from the urban perspective, and he's going to be on a panel that I'm moderating at CE Week in New York.
Very cool.
On July 12th. Incidentally, if any of your listeners are in the New York area and would like to come to CE Week, courtesy of Tech50Plus and seniorplanet.org, they are more than welcome to go to the CE Week website or to my website, where they can click on the CE Week banner and register for free. And
Very cool.
see a lot of new cool technologies. And one of the things that I would ask is that they all come to my panel at 3:00 on Wednesday, July the 12th at the Metropolitan Pavilion at 125 West 18th Street, where we're going to look at 4 hot button issues for Tech for 50-plussers. We're going to look at the self-driving car with a representative from Uber. We're going to look at cybersecurity, somebody from Acronis. We're going to look at connected health with somebody from Be Well Connect, which is the U.S. spinoff of a very successful French company in the connected health space. And let's see, and smart home, we've got Canary. So it's cybersecurity, Acronis, smart home, Canary, connected health, Be Well, and self-driving cars, Uber. So
Quite packed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a pretty interesting hour-long session. They're all going to start off with short presentations, and then we're going to open it up to the floor for questions. So
very cool.
I'm looking forward to it. And again, anybody who's out there and can make it into New York, you're more than welcome to come in as our guest. We'll give you a guided tour of all the new tech that's on the show floor, and then you can come and listen to our panel and spend the day looking at some cool stuff.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll of course throw a link over to to the convention. I have it up here, CE Week New York, and yeah, I'll throw it up in the show notes. So if everyone wants to go get registered and do that, they can absolutely. Sounds like you great plug. It's man. How do you get into things like that? Because I really want to start doing things like that. But regardless, very cool.
There's no money in it, Ben, so don't worry about it.
But no, it sounds like a really cool experience though. At the same time, it sounds like a fun thing to do, and everyone, please go check that out. So, but getting back to, of course, M-Enabling Summit.
Yeah, so let's talk about Uber and the self-driving car.
Sure.
And one of the interesting perspectives is that when you sort of parse out how the self-driving car is going to be used, I think that the implementation is going to be far more the Uber model, the short throw travel, than it is going to be, I'm going to get in my car and it's going to take me on a 120-mile trip without my needing to do anything. I mean, that's going to happen too, but I think we're going to see a lot quicker adoption in the urban markets, where folks are basically saying, you know what, if I have convenient transportation with a robo car and I can just, call Uber and a car is going to come to my doorstep and navigate me. I'll just get in and it'll take me to my destination in 7 minutes or 15 minutes. That takes a lot of the pressure off me to keep the maintenance of a car. Here in the New York area, especially in Manhattan, there are plenty of people I know who not only do not have a car, but have never even had a driver's license, because you
Wow.
can live an entire life in Manhattan and not need to drive.
And of course, there's that old joke. I believe it's from Futurama. No one drove in New York. There was too much traffic. It's just a bigger headache than it's worth in a lot of cases. So makes sense.
Oh, I'll attest to that. I have not driven a car into Manhattan in 7 years.
Wow. Yeah.
I
No.
just, I just won't do it. It's just not worth it.
And I think Uber has a really good position in all of this, because you're kind of thinking, well, why are they talking about robocars? Because they employ thousands and tens of thousands of people who make a living driving a car, doing exactly that. And I think they're at a good position, because if they play their cards right, if they flesh out their ecosystem right, then do you think Uber's kind of planning a fleet of cars that they can slowly phase out, human contractors, and just have, Uber cars shuttle people around?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you were Uber, wouldn't you?
Of course, you save that overhead, and you don't have to worry about all those pesky people in your business. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, what's more is that the chances are that the accident rates will go down, the efficiencies will go up, and I'm sort of sorry for a lot of these guys who are making a subsistence living on Uber. But as we've talked about before, uh, you know, just because the coming of the motor car put the farriers out of business, as well as the buggy whip makers, you can't go back.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely coming. So Uber definitely very interested in this whole space, and again, kind of focusing on not just convenience for the everyday person, but for for the disabled in some manner. I mean, was that kind of talked about how it's going to improve that lifestyle?
Interestingly enough, Uber took some hits on that one, because most of their vehicles right now are not handicap accessible, or wheelchair accessible, I should say. And so Uber is sort of slowly coming to grips with the fact that if it is going um, to become a real replacement for uh, if self-driving or Ubers are going to become a replacement for the fleet that's out there now, they need to do a lot of work to get from where they are now to where they need to be to handle an aging and a disabled community. And it's a matter of easily accessible vehicles for wheelchairs, but also for people who are blind, for people who are for hearing impaired. If you're blind, how do you know there's an Uber that's actually out in front of your house waiting for you?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, there's beacon technology that'll help get you there, but they understand that they've got to think this through as they move ahead.
Right. It's like I said, it's not an easy issue for a lot of people, and surprising that Uber did take a hit. But I mean, if Uber can take that hit, then I think really again, we talked about this, the entire car industry can, because it's not just Uber, it's also Lyft, it's also Tesla, it's also Ford, it's also Mercedes. Everyone is developing that way. So,
Well, interestingly enough, I was just the guys from Chevrolet just dropped off a new Equinox for me this afternoon to test out, which I'm going to be doing over the 4th of July weekend. And what it's equipped with all sorts of stuff. It does not have auto braking, but it has almost everything else. It has the lane assist. It has the cameras all the way around the car, so you can see everything that's around you, an assortment of connections and so on. The learning curve is going to take me a full week just to figure out everything that's in it.
yeah.
And So that's sort of the good news, and the bad news is we're going to have all of this technology in our cars. And the bad news is that, you know, in order for us to really master it, you're going to be a distracted driver unless that next step, the self-driving car, is actually there. And then
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about distractions because you just push the button and go.
You know, and that was actually a you know, and of course move on to other parts of the summit in a second, but that was actually a piece of, I forget whose philosophy, but I know that Tesla has a philosophy and Ford has a philosophy that the Tesla model is you gradually replace the driver, as in you give them things like lane assist, lane keep, speed check, blind spot detection, you know, things like that that are found in cars that are very helpful, and then you gradually, you know, just kind of slowly phase in the self-driving car, which Tesla is doing. And then you have the Ford model, which they don't want to come out with a self-driving car or with really any of those features until they can completely cut out the driver, because they feel if you rely on the computer, if you rely on a half-finished system, then you may find yourself distracted, like you said, and may end up in actual more casualties as a result of using these cars. And we saw like one or two instances of this when it came to, like, let's say that gentleman who crashed into the back of a stopped, you know, 18-wheeler and unfortunately, you know, passed away. But I think that it's really coming kind of Tesla's way. It's elements of self-driving are coming before the full-fledged system, and that's just what we're gonna have to get used to.
Yeah, well, I regard that guy as having proven out Darwin's theory, but that's a different story.
Yeah, that's true. He did ignore like 8 different warnings and blah blah blah. That was the thing. So all right, so self-driving cars, again, that is a hole that we can get into for the entire show and more. So back to the M-Enabling Summit. And by the way,
Right, so
and just real quick, I was checking out the site and I was fascinated. They have a little widget at the top of their page that I wish we had here at Computer America. But it lets you zoom in the page. You know, if you're watching the video portion, you can see that. It lets you zoom in the page at any zoom you want using just your mouse, and it even has text-to-speech on and off. And
Yep.
makes sense that, you know, a summit about disability would have a really cool feature for those who are, you know, under some kind of disability.
So there were some other very interesting companies that I'd like to, you know, mention briefly,
Sure,
and
go for
then
it.
we'll come back after the break and continue with some of them. One of them is called Assistive Wear, and you can see some of their stuff on my website as well. And what they do is they are taking. Remember, we've talked before about, you know, various sorts of proprietary hardware for seniors and so on, like GrandPad and AARP's RealPad and so on. But you know, I think we've also mentioned that the iPad as a system is so rich that you can throw almost anything on it and make it work.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need proprietary hardware. And what AssistiveWare does is proves that out by creating keyboards, including symbol keyboards that you can use for folks who are unable to speak. And simply by pointing to various symbols, you can actually form grammatically correct sentences so that you can communicate with somebody. There are others that have big letters and highlight the vowels to make it really easy to type. And they also have, you know, predictive functionality as well. And they can even predict entire sentences based on your habits. So I think that from the visual and cognitive learning perspectives, some of these programs are getting really swift. There's another one out there called Teltex, Teltex, which does some similar functionality. And actually, both of those companies, both Teltex and AssistiveWare, were actually recommended to me by the folks at Apple to take a look at. So, you know, if they're going to do it, it's not sleazy.
Right.
And one of the other companies that's been there for a couple.
Actually, before we get started with the other company, the music, I know that you can't hear it, but the music means that we're about to take a break. So everyone, We'll be right back with Mr. Gary Kaye, Tech50Plus, and going over, of course, the M Enabling Summit. We'll finish that up and then move on to some, onto some really cool products and different topics. But stay tuned. More Computer America coming right after this. Stay tuned.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show, 31 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And, of course, Gary Kaye is going to be joining us for both hours. Wow, that is a long time gone, and I'm still doing it. Both segments as we continue on here. And of course, the M Enabling Summit. And we're going over some of the different companies that were presenting there, showing off tools to, kind of help people get the most out of their devices. So, Gary, sorry I had to cut you off, but you were mentioning another company that's been there for a few years?
I want to touch on two companies, and then we can move on to some other stuff.
Sure.
But Amazon has actually been at the M Enabling Summit for the last few years, talking about the capabilities of the Alexa ecosystem and how that is helpful for those, especially who are visually impaired. Essentially by enabling you to use a voice to command all sorts of stuff in your house, everything from the blinds to the lights for other people, to the doorbells and so on. And Amazon has really been trying to wave the flag on that. I'm not sure that they're as far there as some other folks, but it's interesting to see that they're out there in public and trying. The other company that I found that I thought was interesting was called Cyber Times, spelled CYBER TIMEZ, and it's not up on the site yet, but we will have it up in the next day or two.
I mean, it is included on the list of your topics for the summit.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
They do a couple of interesting products for both the hearing impaired and the visually impaired, and they basically develop software suites that run on existing hardware. So for the hearing impaired, they've got stuff that runs on Android phones and pairs with Android Wear watches that will vibrate to give you notifications about things, and actually it monitor things like the smoke detector in your house. And if there are some real issues, it will automatically notify contacts on your contact list that there's a problem that you need some help with. So I think that's pretty interesting. But they're on the visual side, they're working with a company that you're probably familiar with called Vuzix.
Of course, yeah.
Right, that does smart glasses, and they're basically putting a software overlay on Vuzix that gives you up to 15 times magnification, but it also does optical character recognition, and so it will, you can sort of aim your head in the direction of what it is you're interested in, and it will read the optical character recognition into your earpiece. It does not require a persistent cloud connection, and I think they're competing there with another company we've we've talked about before called Orcam.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um,
Welcome. Yeah, and by the way, anyone out there who wants to go be an internet sleuth, a Computer America archaeologist, we just had Vuzix on the show last year, this time, like June 27th, 2016. So obviously, it's not going to be what we're talking about exactly, but you know, it's certainly on there. So there's also Orcam, like you mentioned.
right. So let's move on.
Okay. All right.
One of the products that we saw at CES that has gotten a tremendous amount of publicity is from a company called Nuheara, Nuheara. And they've got this product out called IQBuds, BUDS,
Mm-hmm.
which they're positioning as sort of a competitor to Apple's
AirPods.
AirPods, but it actually does a lot more. It does assistive hearing as well. It's more like one of these things. Again, we've talked about this before. These PSAPs, the personal sound amplification products that the consumer technology industry and the Consumer Technology Association have been promoting as an alternative to the $5,000 hearing aids.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that most people just can't afford those. They
Right.
can't. It's like buying a used car. You want to buy a used car, stick something in your ear.
Right.
So these things are $300, which means they're about double the price of the AirPods. But they will play hi-fi music. So they're actually pretty good with hi-fi, high-res files. They will let you hear and control the ambient sound around you, so that if you're somewhere, say like riding a bicycle, and you want to listen to music, but you also want to know what's going on around you, they will let you do that too. And it will let you, pick profiles, whether it's listening to music or sitting in a restaurant or a theater or being out on the street, so that you can control where the ambient sound is coming from and how much attention you want to be paying to it. So it's an interesting step above the AirPods, short of dedicated hearing aids, many of which now have that same functionality at obviously a tiny fraction of the price. There are trade-offs. The IQBuds are pretty big and pretty clunky. And most reviewers said, oh, well, I think that the fit is just fine. I wasn't that thrilled with the fit.
I can see from the photos, a lot of, or at least a big selling point of a lot of hearing aids and hearing devices is that they're practically
invisible?
unnoticeable. Yeah, invisible. These, not so much.
Right, but the question is, you want to pay $300 or $5,000?
That's true.
So for $5,000, you only have something sticking out of your ear. For $300 instead of $5,000. There you go. It's a trade-off. One of the things about it is that it requires you to sync both the IQBuds with your Bluetooth, but you also have to sync the Nuheara app to your phone as well. So you need to like double sync, which is a little bit of a pain to get it to pair and to get all the functionality right. You can use them with other Bluetooth devices that are not Android or iOS based, such as like a Sony Walkman, but the functionality is really limited. You can do music playback, but that's about it. You're not going to be able to get much else out of them. But I think they're an interesting concept, and I'm certain we're going to see more coming along like this. And the interesting thing about what Nuheara is doing is their marketing program, which is really trying to position these things as being cool. They're not trying to market them to seniors. Specifically, they are not trying to market them to the hearing impaired. They're basically saying, hey, you want to listen to music, you want to be out on the street, you want to hear, what's important to you and not the garbage that's not, this is a great way to do it. And I think that's an interesting approach, and they seem to be having some success with that. But if you look at all of their advertising, their website and so on, it's like, hey, aren't these cool and hip? Even if they're like looking like a rock sticking out of your ear.
Yeah, that's what I was noticing. A lot of their pictures are people under the age of 40. They're working, they're active, they're going and doing things. But I guess that does kind of convey that these will be good for days out, nights out. I mean, I do like the long battery life. And by the way, obviously this needs to be paired with your phone, so it can only work with your phone. So I guess as long as they last longer than your phone battery, you should be pretty okay using these things, I assume.
Yeah, but they don't last longer than your phone battery. They last about 4 hours, and the cases, it comes with a case that's rechargeable, so you can basically get 3 full charges out of the case. So when you look at that number for battery life, it's like, not so much.
Okay, I gotcha. So
yeah, it's like, read the fine print.
I gotcha. But and I'm sure AirPods do the exact same thing as well. But no, they seem, it like you said, it seems like a good trade-off between, somewhere between the $200 AirPods and the $5,000 hearing aids and things like that. I mean, would you recommend them, like, to anyone out there kind of looking to get something like this?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think that
you just you just did a review of it.
I did a review, and my comment is the functionality is actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I have very small ears, at least the sort of inside things
right.
in my ears are small, and so any earbuds I've ever used, I need the smallest ear tips, and I didn't find these all that comfortable, although, as I say, the vast majority of reviewers found them just fine. So my recommendation is that these are definitely worth considering, but I would not buy them until you try them out. And remember, the AirPods are the same way. The AirPods actually work great for like 90 some odd % of the world's people, but there is a percentage that they just keep falling out.
Yeah.
And so, before you go plunk down that kind of money, you really need to try them out and say, all right, are these things for me?
That is completely fair. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think the functionality is good. I enjoy the music quality. They have, they call it SINT, smart intelligent noise cancellation, which is not exactly the kind of active noise cancellation you'd find on the Bose QCs or on some of the Sony MDRs. It is, they don't call it passive, but it's not really that active either.
Right.
But it does reduce ambient sound. I don't know that they'd be that great for plane flight in terms of canceling cabin noise the way that the Bose QC30s are.
Gotcha. I mean, all these things, they are. It's important. I mean, I noticed this when I recently reviewed. When I recently reviewed a television. Whenever they come up with a new term for a technology that they already have, just like you said, usually it's a kind of a knockoff technology. It's not as good, but it'll still get you there. It'll still get you there. So, all right, and this whole thing, it sounds like not perfect by far, but not terrible, and something that people should definitely take notice of. So, Nuheara IQBuds. We have a link in the show notes if you want to check that out. But I'm kind of excited, if you don't mind, if we can jump over to Google Assistant, because I feel like Google Assistant hasn't gotten as much praise as, say, Alexa or Siri, and the Google Home unit, which is fighting desperately to keep up with the Amazon ecosystem. So Echo ecosystem echoes. Wow, I just realized that.
Ecosystem.
Right. Yeah. So, but Google is doing a lot to try to compete in this, and Apple any day now is going to come out and compete in this market. But you have here that you want to talk about the new assistant and the home ecosystem from Google. What about
it was a lot of fun, actually. There's stuff that you think about what Google already has in place, right? So Google already has their information cards. They already have in place their Chromecast, and they already have the whole Android backbone, and they also already have in place the fact that if you're using an Android device, Google knows about you. And now what they're doing is they're building on all of that. They are also finally basically saying, you know what, we can't ignore the fact that there's an Apple ecosystem there. We just can't. It's real, and we just can't fight it. We might as well join it. So what they're doing with Google Assistant is they're adding iOS-based versions of the app, including one called Allo, which is sort of an enhanced version of sort of Hangouts, and allows you to do some really interesting stuff. So, for example, what it will let you do, and I thought this was pretty cool, when you're trying to set up a date with some friends and decide what restaurant you want to go to and what time you want to meet, how many texts need to go back and forth before you come to a decision? 3, 4, 10, 20?
Yeah, I mean, when I do mine, it's because it's not just when do you want to meet up? It's, well, when is Kelly available, and when can Leo get off work, and blah blah blah. It's 20, 30. It's something like that.
Right. And is it going to be Indian? Is it going to be Italian? Is it going to be sushi? How spicy do you want it? Do you want to go uptown? You want to go downtown? Anyway, so what this does, it will allow a whole group to get on together on your phone and basically chat using text and the internet, so that you can call up the websites for the restaurants. You can all look through the menus, and you can do all of this with a whole group in real time. And it's really sort of cool. If you were talking about a movie, you can go look at the trailer and see if it's a movie you want to go to. And so I thought that
just to be clear, that requires what hardware for everyone to be invested in? I mean, is that simply like an app on an Android phone, or?
Yeah, it's an app on an Android phone or on an iOS device.
Okay, I gotcha.
Right, but Google Assistant basically lives in the cloud, and so the whole notion behind Google Assistant, even though the Google Home device is tied to it, is that the Google Assistant is going to be ubiquitous. You're going to be able to access whatever you've stored in Google Assistant, whether it's restaurants, whether it's contacts, anything, from any place you are, and on any device that will get you there. That's pretty cool. I have some security questions about it, and I sort of posed that to them, and they did not give me answers that I was necessarily thrilled about, especially because so much of the stuff is voice activated and not necessarily password protected or double verification protected or whatnot. But it's still a tremendous convenience. And if you are using the Google Home device, this all integrates, and I was really very pleasantly surprised to see how seamlessly this all integrated together. So you can use it, in your workout space and bring in third-party YouTubes to work out to. You can and cast using a Chromecast onto your TV screen or onto a big monitor. You can go into your kitchen and use it to look up recipes and basically start the recipe and tell it to pause while you finish putting together that particular set of ingredients or go back to the previous step.
And just to be clear, if people will start using this kind of thing for for everything that you just mentioned, I really don't see. Actually, I really do see why they're stopping the little bots that go through your Gmail and check for keywords. I can see why they stopped doing that, because now at this point we're just telling Google everything that we're doing. They don't have to surreptitiously find out. Google just kind of knows it. I mean, is there any kind of like kind of baked in advertising? It's like, oh well,
No.
yeah, okay,
Not so far. There's
gotcha,
always tomorrow.
right.
But as I said, I was, again, uh, Amazon was way out in front on all of this stuff, and they're still doing tremendously well. But we are seeing evidence. So, for example, Google announced, I believe, yesterday that um, Google Assistant is integrating with Amazon's Alexa.
Right.
So the walls are coming down, Ben.
That is the and really, I remember having you on talking about this about 2 years ago. I mean, when the Internet of Things, for like, it seems longer, but like 2-3 years ago, whenever it started, the Internet of Things really started to pick up speed. We were worried about these about these wall fences.
Silos. Right, the silos,
Yeah,
yep.
different different formats and different standards, and it's good to see everything coming together.
Well, they all realized sooner or later that the alternative was going to be a Betamax VHS fight to the death. And nobody can afford that. You just can't afford to invest the tens or hundreds of millions of dollars to promote an ecosystem, and it's going to be an all or nothing proposition. So I think that they all have gotten a lot smarter in saying, guys, whether or not we like it, we're going to all have to play together in the same sandbox to grow. It's the old line about the rising tide lifts all ships.
Right.
And it's basically, in order to grow the Internet of Things, in order to grow our ability to interact seamlessly with our devices as humans, instead of device-driven operators, we got to get together on this. We've got to open things up. And I'm very happy to see this happening, because I think it's a huge step forward. And I think it's really going to drive the adoption of these new technologies much faster, because the consumer no longer has to make the decision, gee, if I go with this one, am I screwed on that one?
Right. No, it's certainly, the connection of it all, great. One thing that I hope Google does come around to very, very soon. I know that Amazon recently launched it. I think it would be better actually on the Google platform, because they have so many different ways that you can kind of use the assistant like you mentioned. But Amazon recently came out with, there's of course the Amazon Echo, the tall one, and then there's the little hockey pucks, the dots, I think they're called, and then
Right.
they have a couple others.
The new one is the Show.
Right. They have like the Show, and they had another one. But they just recently announced that you now have intercoms between every device. So if you're in the kitchen and you want to talk to someone in the living room, you can open up that intercom and talk to each other throughout a household. I think that kind of technology, and make it that simple through all Google devices, would be like, it would replace phone calls completely. It's kind of like walkie-talkies that are just kind of built into technology.
So let me say two things here. The first is that one of the things that Google demonstrated that it will be implementing we think by the end of the summer or early fall, is Google Call. And that will allow you to talk to Google Home and place a phone call anywhere in the United States or Canada, I think, without having a telephone.
Right.
All right. So you basically could say, call mom or call 203, 777, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And it will do it using, a Wi-Fi connection. And essentially harnessing the power of Google's MiFi system. So I think that's very encouraging. The intercom stuff you're talking about is, I think, a very natural extension. We've seen a product that came out earlier this year called Nucleus, which is basically a sort of a senior-oriented intercom product, but the intercom can be in the next room or it can be into dad's house 3,000 miles away. And it's basically one touch via an internet connection. It is incredibly useful for sort of a tech wary,
Right,
opposed to tech savvy audience. And so I think those capabilities are going to be baked in. And if they're not there today, they'll be there, really soon, because it's a natural.
yeah, absolutely. It's certainly progressing in that way, and the further integration, it's probably going to happen before you know it. I mean, we just talked about 2-3 years ago, all of this was just coming. Now we're living in it, and 2 or 3 years from now, let's face it, the car is going to turn into your next living room, and you're going to have a lot of time to sit around, do nothing, play games, and talk to each other. So they're going to get the technology down right. And Gary, we have like 2 or 3 minutes left. Why don't we touch lightly, just a few of these technologies that you kind of wanted to mention about that helps rehabilitate patients? Because I currently some family members of mine, they're going through rehab. It's not the easiest thing in the world. Anything that you kind of want to bring attention to real quick?
Well, I had a really interesting chat this morning with the fellow who is, his name is Peter Neutrino, and he is the head of technology innovation at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. And they are actively developing new technologies, both hardware and software, for the rehabilitative space. And what was the most interesting to me is that some of the stuff that they're doing is VR based. And what they're finding is that in 2 instances in particular, with stroke and with neuropathy, they've been able to use virtual reality to help people recover from both of those problems. In terms of stroke, one of the things that can often happen to stroke victims is that as they recover, their view of the world is actually slightly off kilter. It's actually off by anywhere from 5 to 20 degrees. And so they're using VR technology to slowly bring these people back to having the proper perspective on the world around them through the VR glasses. The other thing they're doing is with neuropathy, which is also being done for amputees, where they get those phantom pains where the limbs used to be. And they are finding in very, very, very early studies, and I can't emphasize that too much, like really early studies, that by using some of this VR technology, they are able to get patients to basically forget that they had any pain, and they can do it within a matter of minutes. After the therapy starts. I mean, it's really very impressive stuff.
Very, very incredible. And VR has a lot of applications in a lot of tech fields and medical fields, of course. So, but hey, Gary, music means we're just about out of time. If people want to find more of your content, of your writing, Tech50Plus.com, right?
That's correct.
All right. Very, very well said. So now, please go check it out. There's links in the show notes, computeramerica.com, all that good stuff. If you miss any part of the show, go back and check it out. And of course, the podcast will be up here in just a matter of minutes. So until next time, everyone, thank you so much for listening and have a great day. Gary, thank you so much for joining us. Catch you next month.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Everyone, have a good day.
Ten seconds.